So we actually have a variety of programs for the Esports Association. One is career readiness. So we actually work with the Career Center here to better prepare our association members to learn those life skills that they are going to need so that when they make that transition over to a career pathway.
Awesome, awesome. This guy, we gotta turn around. This guy wins almost every tournament we throw. I'm telling you. You gotta watch him live. He's gonna be something big.
CSUDH Esports Association is centered in 4 domains: academics and research, community engagement, competition, and entertainment.
We're trying to make sure that the students are prepared for the future, that they understand the diversity that media offers now, and again, look beyond the traditional outlets.
They can gain fieldwork, partnerships, as well as potential job opportunities and in both the higher education and K-12 fields.
We believe that esports is a strategy and not an outcome. Our association is here to help anyone that is willing to learn how to take your gaming skills to the next level through a supporting community. If you are looking to showcase your production talents to help support our esports teams, then this is the association for you. We host online and on-site tournaments that will allow our members to showcase their competitive spirit. Our association broadcasts out our competition and practices to entertain our community as well as our global audience. We believe that by joining us, you will come out of the association feeling transformed and better prepared to transfer your skills into your career. Join today and begin to explore endless opportunities through our Esports Association here at Cal State Dominguez Hills. Excellent. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for tuning in. I want to thank you all, those that are watching live, and for those that are watching this in post, I want to thank you as well. Just a quick reminder that you do have the chat box option to chat your questions during the time of the session. We have a special guest today, and we will get to all of your questions as soon as you type them up. And we understand too that some of these questions might surface up as you hear more from our special guest. Also, I do want to remind everybody that we do have other social media platforms there that you can follow so that you can get notified and alerted for all the updates and news. All right, without any further ado, we have a special guest. His name is Wayne McCullough, and he is the owner of Hammer Down Esports. So please, everybody in the chat box, show Wayne some love. Go ahead, go crazy. Welcome Wayne into the program. So Wayne, take it away. Please introduce yourself.
Hey guys, as Ruben said, I'm Wayne. I own Hammer Down Esports. We've been doing this for a while. We started out as part of another community, and our mission is to actually take the general culture that has been in gaming, that's been that toxic culture, and be something different. That is what Hammer Down is all about. That's what we were founded on, and that's what we're doing successfully, actually. So that's good, and I appreciate everybody being here. I see a lot of love coming in from the chat here, so thank you guys for that.
Absolutely. I mean, it just starts right there too, Wayne. I mean, the topic of today is building a positive esports culture. And it starts with that. You know, we have the ability to chat. We have the ability to do emotes. We have the ability to show positive affirmation, right? And we get a chance to do it in a unique way. Not other platforms have the ability to do so. So yeah, this is another way to show more positivity. So thank you all that are chatting in the chat box. Excellent, Wayne. So tell us a little bit more about Hammer Down. Like, how did you even get started into esports, and how did Hammer Down came to be, and what led to your passion? What led to your projects? I mean, even go back into defining it if you don't mind.
Well, okay, so talking about the passion, right? The passion started when I, at a young age, like I guess I have a typical story when it comes to the passion of the video games, built in my life, because it was my escape from a bad life when I was younger. It was what kept me going. Um,
Yeah, no, I hear
so
you.
these guys are really really hyping it up. Uh,
Good.
but no, it was what kept me going. There was very dark times in my life, and those were my escapes. I learned a lot of major life lessons
Mhm.
playing games.
Yeah.
I learned a lot about what it takes to be a good, positive human.
Yeah.
From playing games.
Wow.
Um, I started out probably playing a lot of RPGs and things like that. Final Fantasies, Breath of Fires.
Yeah.
And those were the things that taught me good morals in a lot of ways.
That's awesome.
Um, so Hammer Down itself got its start. Um, it was actually birthed from a bad culture. Um,
Ah,
so what it was is we were in an entirely unhelpful situation with the culture of another org we were in, and I'm not going to name names because that's not productive. Um, so we did really well for ourselves amongst ourselves there, the group of us that started this together, and at the end of it, everybody kind of looked to me and they said, you know, you've shown us that you've got the ability to lead us in a good positive direction. So if you want to do something else, we're with you.
mm,
And I said, okay, let me do something else then, because this is not growth where we are. So
mm,
I had a passion for growth. I wanted us to develop into something better,
mm.
and so that's where Hammer Down came from, really, in a
That,
nutshell.
that's awesome. And Wayne, if you don't mind, even sharing with us, what is it that Hammer Down is currently doing? What game title is Hammer Down pursuing for
Uh,
audience?
uh, Several. We're actually pursuing, like, on a more minor note right now, we're pursuing things like Valorant teams, Apex teams, Rainbow Six teams, Rocket League teams,
Mhm.
several other League of Legends, several teams like that. But primarily, we have a major presence in the Overwatch community.
Oh
That's what we're
man.
known for.
Awesome, awesome. For those that are in the chat, I'm sure show your love in the Overwatch if that is your game of choice. So fantastic. So how did that happen? I mean, was it just, hey, this is what everyone is looking to do, or like how? I'm always interested to know, like, how does a game title get selected and everybody just gravitates towards it and they just want to put in the effort to develop teams and go after even competition?
All right, so the reason that we're focused in Overwatch, to kind of more start there at the beginning of your question, um, is
Mhm.
that we were originally an Overwatch team. This is how Hammer Down was formed. It was formed from an Overwatch team
From an Overwatch.
originally.
Mhm.
And one of the things that we did, even some of these guys that are in the chat here were part of my old Overwatch team, and we were part of a tournament series called the Overtime Champion Tournament,
Mm.
and we were the finalists in that tournament.
Wow. Okay.
In our very first ever tournament, we went into as a team, and that's where we found our passion, because we were like, you know what, um, we didn't necessarily win by title rights here, but we were the fan favorites. We came out of nowhere. We were the underdogs in the tournament, and we showed up.
That's
And there,
cool.
and that was just this huge rush. And I feel like that fueled the fire that was needed to become what we are now.
That's super cool. Especially, I mean, I love underdogs or comeback stories, if you will. It definitely does do a difference in dynamics, and it really brings even the teams together in closer niche. So that's really neat. That, I mean, I'm sure from all
I
the
feel like the
competition you've had stories that way. Yep.
I feel like the most impressive thing that happened in that tournament, though, is even though we were one of the plat teams, right, at
Yep.
that time, we had more people that were in our fan base, like that came to watch us in the live streaming parties and in the OTC Discord and all that, than any other team, even their masters level teams, and any of these other guys. Like
Wow.
we had this massive fan base.
You
So
guys are the people's team. That's how I see it.
that was it. We were the people's team.
That's really cool. That's really cool, Wayne. That's awesome. So now take us a little bit further now. Again, I'm sure coming from, perhaps, not the best culture, probably a toxic culture, right? and taking the team that was in this space, moving it into a hammer down location or space now, and start influencing them in a positive way. I mean, I'm sure that wasn't easy. I mean, to just kind of forget some of the toxicity issues that were, involved into it, moving into a more positive enlightened space. How did you go about that process? What were you thinking early on? And did you have a plan?
Well, I feel like we may be a few steps ahead before we can really dive into that too much, because
Okay.
we're talking about culture, right?
Yes,
So
correct. Please take us
so
there.
first
Yes.
we got to define all of these things.
Absolutely. Yes.
Uh, so when you're talking about culture, so first thing we got to ask is, like, what is culture?
Yes. Absolutely. Please.
So culture, that's the customs, the arts, the social institutions, the achievements of a particular group. Uh, and it's also the characteristics and knowledge, right, of a particular group. So it encompasses things, like social habits, arts, and in this case, games.
Right. Right.
Um, so if you take that a step further, it's shared patterns of behavior, it's the interactions, it's the constructs in people's minds that they understand and they learn through socialization.
Yep.
Uh, so it's the social patterns of a group
Yeah.
in the biggest nutshell. So in socialization, right, that's the process where you learn the social cues,
Right. Right.
of a culture, and that's a period of time.
Mm-hmm.
So then if we're talking about socialization inside of gaming culture, right?
Right.
So where do we learn these patterns? Where do these patterns come from? Where is this toxicity that is the norm, that has been the norm,
Mm-hmm.
coming from?
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. I'm just intrigued. Yeah. I'd like to know,
Uh, well, I mean, it's something that's symbiotic. It feeds on each other, right?
Yes.
So what it is you have, like, media that feeds culture. So in the gaming industry, that's Light's already getting banned in chat, I see. Mention that on the side.
Yeah.
Uh,
All good. All good.
uh, so, so you got things like Twitch, that we're on right now.
Right.
You've got Kotaku, Dextero, individual streamers, Dr. Disrespect, Alinity, Ninja, Markiplier.
Right.
All of these guys are what feed the socialization, which feeds the culture of gaming.
Right.
Uh, so, and that's the thing. Like, then you have to ask the questions. Like, if you were feeding into this and this person has a reputation for being toxic, you got to ask yourself the question of, like, why is that my favorite, media source? What's drawing me in there?
Right.
Why do I keep going back to this? So then
Right.
it becomes some self-reflection questions you have to ask.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think we all fall victim in one way or another, that sometimes we just go almost in a mechanical state of mind where we don't ask that question enough, the why. And something that it's very common practice now, even in the state of reflection. But do we even get to that reflection? Is our world moving too rapidly that we forget to allot that time for reflection time? And very interesting that you say that, because I do see that being sort of a common thread for just anything, not just in games. But why is it that we are revisiting something that we know are going to give us the same results, right? If we want something good to happen, we know change needs to be the main ingredient, if we will. And what does that change look like? So asking yourself those key questions in that self-reflection period is how you really get started and to start moving into the right direction, taking those steps. But no, well done. I mean, Wayne, I hear you. And it sounded like, just from you were sharing earlier, that there were team members that felt the same way that
Mhm.
you felt, and knew that you needed to get out, get into a space that was almost start fresh. Like, hey, let's create a new foundation.
That's exactly what it was. That's exactly
Really
what it
neat. No,
was.
so please share, like, knowing that you had people feeling very similar experiences, knowing that they've self-reflected at one point or another, hey, I want to get into this space. And then, I mean, I'm sure you didn't have everybody come with you, but how did it grow from there? Like, how did that few folks that just started, how did that started to grow, and how do you solidify something like that, especially as more people come into the fold?
Right. So that's talking about how do we change culture,
Yeah.
and actually everybody that was part of or in my circle of what I was doing there did come with us. They all wanted to change. It
Oh,
was
really? Oh, good,
unanimous.
good.
Yeah,
No, that's good.
it was unanimous. And the deal was is like a lot of them, yeah, they were feeling down because of the way things were having to be done, but because the oppression that was happening, the way things were set up, was forcing my hand in not being able to treat people the way I wanted to treat them.
Mm,
And but they knew that because I was open with the communication about that. I didn't hide what was going on. I was always transparent
mm.
about what was going on. Um, so the way you change culture is you have to be able to enable people or empower people
Mm.
to change individual behaviors.
Okay.
So
So
you know,
unpack that for me a little bit, like
right,
empower people. So,
right. Okay, so if an individual person
mhm,
can't take responsibility or doesn't feel like they can take responsibility for what's going on around them, with consistent changes or behaviors, it can't morph into a healthier state of being. They have to feel like taking responsibility is okay. So they have to have an atmosphere
mm,
in where being wrong
mm.
isn't necessarily something that's just going to bring the ceiling crashing down on them.
Right, right. Okay.
So what's the best way to put this?
Yeah, yeah. No,
Um,
I hear you. It's being
so they
able
have
to
to. So,
take that.
so
Yeah.
I guess the best way to
Mhm,
get into that is like, okay, as an org, I have a mission statement.
mhm,
So people can look at that mission statement and go, okay, since this is what this org is founded on, and this is what the person who leads this org says, like this is his words, like I can hold him accountable to this, and therefore I have a platform where it's okay for me to be wrong because he's not going to have the ceiling crash down on me because he's not going to have a toxic atmosphere.
correct, correct.
See, so that's my statement. Like I'm not going to allow negativity to be the status quo. I'm not going to allow toxicity to be the status quo. So that means, but see, that also allows me to be wrong. See, then
Mhm,
I can take responsibility for that. So,
mm.
and that's leading by example. So if they see me be wrong and take responsibility for it, and now they know that they can be wrong and take responsibility for it, and it's
Right.
okay.
That's so it starts really from the even the leadership component.
It always starts from the leadership component.
Right, right. It is that welcoming even failures or mistakes or errors is a way that others can feel more comfortable taking that step to say, hey, I did mess up. Oh, you know what? It is on my end. More accountability efforts, if you will, to start
Right.
building an organization that is centered around positivity to give us essentially the opportunity to move forward.
Well,
Um,
what it does is it actually it turns accountability into the standard.
ah, okay.
So when
That,
you turn accountability into the standard, then that's how culture begins to change. Because if you think about toxic culture, one of the big things that's toxic about toxic culture is that accountability is
is
not enforced.
not present. Yeah, yeah. That's a good
That's
point.
part of what breeds it.
Yep. Well, that's a good point what you just made. Accountability is very key and integral in being able to get any production done. Period. And we can produce something, but if if a mistake is made and not being able to identify it, also becomes troubling because then we won't know how to improve upon, and that affects not just a person, but really the organization that also embodies um, the efforts that are being behind it. But right on. I mean, I hear that, and I really do hear even just taking that time to reflect and being part of what a negative one looks like really helps to think, okay, wait a second, we know we don't want to repeat what we just went through. We want to make some changes. Sometimes the changes are gradual, some of them are more, hey, we already know that we're not going down this road. So has how do you bring in someone that is brand new to hammer down? Like, what does that intro orientation look like for somebody that's brand new?
It's good. Well, I want to touch on one more point there,
Oh,
but I'm going
please,
to answer your
please,
question.
yes, yeah, yeah.
Uh, so another thing about building a positive culture, though, just as a side note, is not just accountability, but celebrate successes. Like when people
Celebrate.
are doing the right things,
Right.
whenever they are being positive and they are taking the accountability, and they're doing things correctly, always celebrate successes.
Yeah.
And give them, symbols, things to look at, or look towards.
Mm.
Um, but as far as bringing people in to hammer down, um, I would say our process is we go out, we do our recruiting. We go ahead and we tell them up front, like, what we're about. We give them at least a shotgun view of hammer down. I think one of the big statements we always jokingly make, but it is very serious too, is if you can't get through a match without teabagging somebody, we're probably not the work for you. But uh,
Gotcha.
so that's one of our things. We go ahead and let people know that one of our big no-nos is a toxic behavior. But we also have a 2-week trial period, and something just happened here to our feed.
Sorry about that, Wayne. Had a
No, it's
little
okay.
bit of a lost connection there.
No, it's
Continue,
okay.
continue.
Okay, but no, okay. So we have a 2-week trial period that we go through with all of our people. So they come in, they try out for a team. We see if they work with a team, if they're gonna, the synergy is gonna be there, if they're gonna mesh up, and if they do, then they get through the tryout process, and then they spend 2 weeks to see if that matchup is worth it. But it's also a period for us to see and them to see if the org and the player are a fit.
Okay.
Um,
Right. And I like that you mentioned that because, you know, even the whole matchmaking, it's so important to orient and to be upfront and clear, that if you integrate somebody that perhaps didn't have those values before, it can really cause a kink in the system of what you already developed in this
this
positive.
is probably why I have the reputation in the org of being the most picky about my team members.
Well, I
Um,
mean, and that could, I mean, if you hear that most picky, right, it's always typically connotated as something negative. Well, that person's picky. Well, that right there tells me, hey, in essence, you care so much to put the effort behind of selecting the right people to get into it. And it's not even to say that they're the wrong people, is that perhaps they're just not ready yet to enter into that best frame of mind to get them in. And if they are, as long as they're willing to learn,
mm.
we can show them and gladly show them the
Willingness to learn is a big thing with us.
yeah,
And,
yeah.
and the other thing is, just because they don't make it onto my team, though, I have actually been known to take somebody and go, hey, this person's not necessarily a fit for my team,
Mm,
but you know what? I've got 5 other teams.
mm,
Maybe they're a good fit for another team.
right, right.
I don't believe in just throwing people away.
That's awesome. Yeah,
That's,
yeah.
here's the thing. And also it teaches people a bit that just because you didn't make it through this door doesn't mean that you won't make it through that door.
Correct.
So it's like a small lesson in not giving up, you know.
No, no, right on, Wayne. I totally agree with what you just said. It's not that we're turning down people in the sense that you're not welcome here. It's that hey, there are opportunities out there. We do care about these standards, and this culture of ours is very lenient. Is not going to be lenient on areas that are going to disrupt our positive culture. So, and I love that you do that. That you have recommendations and referrals on top of that.
Mhm.
You don't see that very often, so I just want to commend you for that. That's really cool.
I
Now,
feel like it's just a thing to do.
yeah, that's that again that's contributing to that positivity. So have you had moments like that where perhaps you've had to say, probably not at this moment we're going to accept you, but later down the road you kind of cross paths again with the same person and they get accepted in?
There has been a couple of cases here and there where we've tried to do stuff like that. I can recall a case with a young man that was looking to play DPS with us when we were first getting started.
Okay.
And he was having issues with another member of the org at that time, and he wasn't handling it well. So
Mm,
we did have to ice him there for a little while off of the org.
mm,
Um, but I reached back out to him after a season, as it were, and I said, "Hey, um, do you want to give this another shot?" Like I wanted to give him a second chance.
mm,
Um, Unfortunately, at that point in time, he wasn't able to put that pass behind him.
mm,
But yeah, there are times whenever we have to do things like bench somebody for a little while and kind of be like, hey, let's work on getting your act together. Because here's the thing, like as much as I'm out there to help all of these guys, be their better self, playing the game and help any way I can as the owner of the org,
yeah.
getting them coaching or get VOD, VOD people come and do VOD reviews, whatever. I also have to have those people come back and sharpen me and make sure that I'm,
Mm,
I have meetings with my guys and I go, hey, like I sit down one on one with a lot of them and like, hey, am I doing things the right way here? Like I will get that wise counsel and make sure that I'm doing it, the right way.
no, that's awesome, Wayne. I mean, also uh, to have conversations like that need to be, those are courageous conversations to be in those spaces, and to put out some of these issues that arise and diffuse them. I mean, I'm sure they're not never easy, but
There are
I'm
some that are
sure,
usually other, and they're one of the
yeah.
hardest things to do is as a leader is stand your ground when people aren't agreeing with you.
Mm, mm,
Um, that's where you really it takes the grit.
mm,
And I have had situations where I've made unpopular choices,
mm.
but in the end, I have to stand by what I believe is right for the most people. So
I see. Yeah, yeah, no, that makes sense. And I'm sure those are difficult. And just how does that look like? I mean, when are you being informed by, let's say, a captain, a lead of the team that informs you that you have to have a conversation? Are you reviewing? Are you going down a process?
it can
What does
take
that
a
look?
lot of forms,
Yeah, yeah.
because I have an open door policy
Okay.
with my org. Like it doesn't matter if you're a player on a team or a captain or one of the management staff. Uh, Anybody knows they can come to me with a problem at any time. Uh, so the thing is, like, if a player has a problem with their captain, they can come to one of the management staff and talk to them, or they can come to me and talk to me. Um, so it can take any of those forms. It could be a captain having an issue with a player and coming to me asking for advice. It can be one of the managers have had a conversation with one of the other captains or players, and now they're coming to me to discuss it with me. Generally speaking, in a more organized fashion, what we'll do is we have the ability for any of the captains, any of the teams, or any of the management staff to call a meeting, and we have like we jokingly refer to ourselves as the Council of Ricks. Uh, and
Love it. Yeah.
so yeah, when we'll all get together and we'll meet up and we'll talk it out. Sometimes it's a good conversation, sometimes it's a rough conversation,
Mm,
but we're gonna have the conversation, and that's what's the most important part is having the conversation.
right on.
And
I
then we're
mean,
gonna make a decision from there. And
yeah,
I'm very known for listening to what everybody has to say and hearing everybody out.
that's good.
And I'm not very stubborn in the fact of
Mm,
if I feel like I'm right, but everybody else feels like I'm wrong, a lot of times I will go with what everybody else is saying because I feel like if I've got five people telling me that
mm.
this is the wrong way, then I probably need to listen.
Right, 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 right. Got you, got you. No, I completely, I hear it. You have to really keep your ear to the ground and hear what everyone is approaching you with. And the fact of the matter is, just even hearing that the organization is able to have conversations and feel safe about it, I mean, that's already contributing to a positive culture. And then,
Of course,
yeah, getting voices and more than one voice really tells you something that they feel like you're approachable, that you're able to really listen and deliver. And like you said, sometimes we may hold something close to us, but realize that is it really an introspective thing when you look about it and you go, is it really me? Is it really the organization that's pointing out that there is something wrong with that call I'm trying to make? And then being able to admit and move forward with them, I think takes a lot of even grit in itself. You know what I mean? What you just mentioned earlier. Yeah, I mean, and then again, so Wayne, just speak to us a little bit more about how, you know, as you take on new members, and again, your organization has expanded, and you guys have also attributed a lot of success. What is it that, I mean, you would continuously recommend to other organizations in order to build a culture similar to yours, or if not just like yours? What is it that you would recommend early on? I mean, it sounded like you guys learned from a really bad and negative experience, that you took that with you to help inform your practice. But if you don't want somebody to go through that same experience because it just was daunting and it really affected the team so badly that it led to a reopening of a new organization, what would you say to those that are starting one, to start being centered around?
Mission statement.
Mission
First
statement.
thing.
Yeah.
So the thing is if you don't have a vision, which is what a mission statement encompasses,
Mm-hmm.
then you have nowhere that to go. Because I mean, think about the word vision, right?
Right.
You have to look at where you're going,
Mm.
because you can't grow if you don't know where you're going. And if you don't have a direction, which is what a mission statement is for an organization,
Right.
then you're not going to get anywhere. So sit down, take a second, and think about what you want out of an org. What is it that you guys collectively as a group, as you're coming together and starting this, sit down with that group and go, okay, what do we want?
Mm.
What do we want? Not what do I want, not what do you want, what
I
do
heard you. Yeah.
we want as a group, and try to take it that way. Now, the way I still do this inside of the org now is I will jump into chats with all the teams and I will just socialize. I will talk to these guys, but more than I'm just talking, I'm also, they don't realize it, but I'm listening to what they're saying. Like I pick up on the little important parts about that are org related, and I listen to what they're saying, and I take that into account, and I try to move in that direction with things if it seems like it's a positive change or a positive thing.
Right. I mean, that's so key. Again, putting our ear close to the ground, right? Ear close to the communication lines, and hear that underlying statements that are being said that maybe seem passive, but are very important because it was said, right? Or it was, typed
If you
out.
if you feel it enough that it came out of your mouth, there's got to be something behind it.
Right. There's got to be something behind it. Exactly. Or if you're typing it out, it goes again to a level of communication that tells me that even in just esports organizations, communication is super vital. It's literally the key, that it's almost the glue, right? It's almost like that bonding glue that keeps everybody together is having good, clear communication lines and being able to feel like they're being heard and listened to. Yep.
Well, you got to keep in mind too that not all communication is typed out or verbal. Like sometimes a silence can speak just as loud as anything else.
Right.
So you have to have a certain level of empathy too when it comes to certain things, because there are some people who are just not good communicators, and you have to be aware of that. And if you have somebody that is like that, and you have somebody that is like that, then you have to go to the extra mile and sit down with them and be like, hey, we need to have a one-on-one, like so that they can be comfortable and know that nobody else is, it's just you, it's just them, and you can have that conversation. Sometimes the fact that they're not having a conversation with you, or they're not seeking you out for a conversation, speaks volumes if you're really paying attention.
No, good point. It almost goes with that essence of also body language, right? If you're able to see, perceive, and it just comes with some experience behind it as well, and also understanding who you are as a self person, right? Would that be a way that you would react? And perhaps that feeling, and you can help that person say, hey, I'm going to close this gap between us because I feel that there's a gap widening or one that's starting to form. So very good point. Very good point about the silence piece too, the non-communication, non-verbals. Now, Wayne, again, we have a little bit more time, but please share with us other practices, and then we're going to get into the Q&A in just a moment too. So I just want to remind everybody to please start chatting away your questions, and we will do our very best to get to them.
All right, so if we're talking about some more things here, so we were talking about how to enforce positive culture a little bit, like it's been a big thing.
Yeah.
So we talked about like in providing meaning with the mission statement and all that. So I don't want to get into that again, but another thing to be aware of in gaming culture that is an uncomfortable thing to talk about, like and sometimes the silence and communication things like this also feeds into this. Is we have to be aware of things like we were talking about this wellness series for CSU,
right?
And so we can emphasize on that because we got to talk about mental health with gaming. Like there has been an epidemic of poor mental health in gaming culture. So we have to be aware of that, which is another good reason to be reaching out to people and always checking in on them to make sure that they're okay.
Right.
So, and encouraging positivity, like, there being a reward system. Like if somebody's doing something good, they're doing good, positive work for your org, always make sure that they are recognized for that. So give them that support. And here's the thing too, also discourage negativity, but do it in a positive way if you can.
Right. Absolutely.
So, like if you got somebody like Light in the chat getting banned over here, that's part of your org, I'm going to have to positively discourage that.
Right. Any banning of any kind, obviously we have to have a one-on-one or just see if everything was okay or if it was a slip up or a mistake to further understand. Right. Completely understand.
But no, he means well. He's a good guy, but I gotta get with him on that. But the thing is, positively discourage negativity. So like, okay, let's say for example you're in a comp match and you got this guy who is like, we're Overwatch fans here, right?
Yes.
We've all been here. There is this guy or girl or person in our comp match, and they're screaming that it is everybody else's fault.
Oh.
We've all been there. Okay, so I can either go, okay, man, like whatever, like I can just get on his level or her level, right?
Right.
And just be just as negative as they're being, or I can be like, okay, man, how can I help you? Like, what can I do for you?
Right.
Okay, and then listen to them. And here's the thing: like 9 times out of 10, they're probably not going to give me a correct thing that's going to help. So then but now I've listened to them. I've opened that door, right? So now this is turned into a positive interaction. So now I can use that positive interaction and turn it back around and go, okay, so I don't think that would work because of this reason and this reason. But what if you and I get together and we try to do this?
Well done. Yeah, well done.
So now I've turned it into teamwork.
Yeah, there you go. Yep.
It doesn't always work, but it is a better approach.
Yeah. And Wayne, I'd like to add that's beautifully said. Like oftentimes, maybe we read too into a message or something that was said. And
I am guilty of falling into the trap of being just as negative as they do. We have all done it.
Yeah, we're not perfect. Yeah, there is no perfection. It's that we're continuously working on it. And I raise my hand because I'm definitely one of those.
Oh yeah, no, I'm there. Accountability, right?
Accountability.
I'm with you. I'm there.
I think we can all raise our hands. We're all working. We're all a work in progress. But yeah, it's the fact that I'm hearing here is that you're asking to, having somebody perhaps who may have not been heard in the past. It's why they're erupting this way or displaying that kind of action.
Yeah, and maybe they tried to do the same thing with 6 games before they got there, and now they're just done. Like you don't know what their experience has been thus far.
You said it earlier, and I like that you said that about, hey, we all come from different backgrounds. We all come from, hey, a spot that perhaps wasn't as positive as they are in today. And it takes some time. I mean, time to actually kind of like peel back those layers, right? Go back into a place where, hey, you know what? I do feel like I'm safe again, not so defensive and heavily guarded because of something that happened in the past. Because we carry that,
Oh yeah.
past experiences into our new experiences or into a new place.
And if you want to shout out somebody that will absolutely show you how to kill somebody with kindness,
Yep.
Shout out to Yami Desi right there in chat. Like she
Oh,
absolutely,
shout
I have
out.
seen, I have absolutely seen this girl like take the worst situations and just
Wow.
make them positive. Like she just has
That's
this
super
ability
cool.
to suck in negativity and spit out rainbows. I don't understand it, but she can do it.
I mean, gosh, that's awesome. That's really, I mean, that in itself, I mean, gosh, that person had to work through so much to get to that point. You know what I mean? Because it's not our instinct sometimes. We do get guarded, we do get defensive, but I think what's key there is to sort of check our pulse. Okay, am I
Mm-hmm.
feeling this way? But before I react, before I do commit an action that perhaps isn't going to be contributing to positivity, that I can catch myself before I, do this blah, you know what I mean? Spit that out. That maybe I need to reflect and unpack it a little bit further for myself to get myself back in. And we do need some good examples. We do need more. Forgive me, I think it's Yami, right? I think we need more Yamis out there to be able to showcase, hey, that's so awesome that I have somebody that is close by to me or that I'm connected with, somebody that I can even ask for support. Hey, what do you do in a situation like this? Because I'm feeling like this at this moment. I need somebody to help me get past this feeling so it doesn't lead into anything harmful or negative. Really cool. That's awesome, Wayne. That's
Well,
really
and that goes into the whole thing about listening to people. You know, you got to hear if people are going through a rough time, or
Yeah.
to make sure they don't get there. You're like, you'd be surprised, like if you just take the time to listen to them, that usually just will solve 90% of the problems. Is they just need somebody to hear the problems.
That's right. That's
So
right.
if you're just fostering those social connections and encouraging that positivity and listening, that's it. And on the individual level, you have to, if you're going to try to change negative culture individually, you have to be that change. Like you have to live it, and understand that positivity is going to multiply around you.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you have to be happy all the time, or that's not a human expectation.
Yeah.
But if you can cultivate a consistent set of behaviors, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be the happiest person around or anything else. It's just that you have to have a consistent ability to show that you care about the people around you. And for it to be genuine, like you have to care about the people around you. That is where positivity is going to be bred. I'm sure we all have somebody that we know that is we probably have a grandpa or an uncle or something in our life, or an aunt, or
Right.
you quote unquote the vodka aunt, right, or whatever in our life, right? That is the person that is grumpy as all get out, but they love you.
Yeah.
Okay, but that is positivity.
Right.
Positivity doesn't take the form of always being smiles and rainbows. I mean, it can, like there are those super cheery people that are like that, but I think there is a distinction to be made there, that needs to be understood. It's how you take responsibility about things and how you make it right.
That's right on, Wayne. Gosh,
it's personal ethics,
but I love it. I mean, it's again fulfilling, especially areas that are currently gaps and holes in the esports world that again we need to see more of. And it's not to say that there isn't hope. I mean, there's hope when you see organizations establishing themselves and helping inform, future goers that are trying to get in as well into the organization. And that to me is very powerful. And again, being more collective on that same mission pathway is going to be something that helps. Yep.
We're competing tonight?
I believe so. I believe coincidentally, I believe we are competing. That's something that I just got informed to by our captain. So it's going to be fun. Even after our session, we're going to have to put on our competitive hats on.
I'm okay with it. I dig it. I dig it. I'm in.
That's awesome. Me too. Me too. Well, I do want to get into the Q&A, just so
Okay,
that,
yeah.
yeah. So if you don't mind, everybody, those with questions, please feel free. There were a couple of questions, and if I forgot any, just go ahead and retype it up for us so that we can read. I know a big piece that was asked earlier is, and I'm going to read this, is what's the best way to coach players to be more positive in terms of mindset and behavior? Great question. Thank you so much for the question.
All right, how to coach people to be more positive, like individual players. Okay,
Right.
again, that's about how you enforce positive behavior and discourage negative behavior. So the deal is much like we were talking about how if you have that toxic player, uh, you have to understand you set up your culture right because you are the org, you set the standard. And here's the thing: if somebody's coming in and they're being toxic and they're not living up to the standard, the mission statement of the org, that's whenever you set them aside and you go, hey, you're not being excellent. Like you're not being that person that we need you to be the face of our org. And you have to understand, and this is where you make them take responsibility, right? If they're not taking responsibility, because that's one of the key components we talked about in being positive and developing positive behavior, you make sure they understand that they have to take responsibility if they're going to be a part of your org.
That's right. That's right.
So you go, hey, we have to talk about the responsibility that you're going to take with these actions, and how we're going to have to change those. Because here's the thing: at the end of the day, if you can't take on that responsibility and become the person you need to be to represent our org, then you can't be a part of our org. So you make sure that that is understood, that there is a consequence at the end of that tunnel.
Right.
And you don't necessarily like just if they've already proven themselves, during their trial period with us, that's how we do it. If they've already proven themselves that they have that ability to be that kind of person that we want representing our org, then you don't just toss them aside. You give them a chance to change what's going on, but also you begin to ask the questions, right? You ask the questions of why. Always an important question to ask.
Yeah.
Why is this behavior formed? What's going on? And then you listen and maybe try to help them through that, or help them find whatever they need to help themselves through that.
Gotcha.
That's how you cultivate positive behavior, by making people understand that you're going to have responsibility. You have to be with the vision. And if you need help, it's okay to get it.
Gotcha. Yeah. Right on. Yeah. And I completely agree with what you just said. And especially help is not a deficiency. It's not.
No, it's actually strength.
Yeah, exactly. Someone that doesn't ask for the help is, going to struggle a lot more than somebody that does raise their hand and says, I do need help.
The idea that help is bad is born in toxic culture.
Right. You just said it, and I commend that. I mean, that's so key, because sometimes our society could tell us, or where we're grown and wherever we're at, may say, oh, you do it yourself. You know what I mean? You don't need help. And I think when you hear more people say, well, I'm self-taught, well, yeah, but you also got some help. Maybe you were self-taught, but you maybe researched something on the web that helped you. There's the key word, helped you become self-taught. Well, I've been self-taught with a little help, you know what I mean? Or with some help, or with a lot of help. I mean, just even throwing that help into our vocabulary goes to show that we don't do it alone.
No, everybody got help somewhere, even if it was just watching how somebody else did something. You had to learn from somewhere.
Exactly. Having good examples, saying, hey, you know what, I'm going to give a shout out because I did see a good example today and I just want to emulate that, or I want to praise that person. Like you said, celebrating the successes are very key.
I mean, and people can try to argue, like let's say, for example, you got the first two woodworkers that ever existed, right?
Yeah.
Well, I guarantee you, both of them watched each other and learned something from the other one.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the neat thing too about, as you pursue an esports association or org or club, and you get yourself connected with others, you sort of get a chance to see what their space looks like and see, they're doing some things that I would definitely want to see that our org could do, or they're doing some things that I'm glad we're not doing. You know, because everybody has their own sets of problems and issues, or maybe the same ones, right? And it'd be interesting to even find out, hey, this is how we solved conflicts that do arise, perhaps in the in-match, in-moment spaces, or prior to that, you know, before getting to the actual moment of gameplay.
Mhm.
Well, right on, right on. Well, fantastic. I mean, I want to get to more questions. One that was mentioned, and forgive me, I'm going to read this one. So, why did with building Overwatch teams first? So, why did you build Overwatch team first? And what was the general group decision, or was it just you?
No, it was a group decision, and it was generally it's because we were all already an Overwatch team. We started
Right,
out as an Overwatch team,
right,
so it really just it was happenstance in its own sense. It could have happened the same way if we'd been a League of Legends team or a Rainbow Six team. It's just how it fell into place.
right,
So
right. No, right on. And I think even just when you mentioned about culture too, that it's so transferable, right?
mhm,
Doesn't matter, you know, insert game title here, but positive culture should be everywhere,
right.
even beyond our esports spaces. Um,
Well, and that's the reason I approached it more from culture as an esports org, because if you're taking the word organization,
mhm.
so you can just look at it as organizational structure.
Ah,
Uh, so at the end of the day, the esports is just a subcontext of the fact that we are an organization.
right,
So
right. I see the connection. Yep. Well done. Well, I want to keep um, conscious of the time. And my gosh, Wayne, I do want to ask, if you don't mind, if you can please share with us some words of wisdom, some great positive affirmation pieces that you could share with everyone that is listening in
sure,
before we say our goodbyes.
yeah, no problem. So is it okay to use one of my favorite quotes? Is that good?
Yes,
Is that
please.
good? Okay.
Absolutely.
This was a quote from a British commander, actually, and he said that you always need to understand where your limits are,
Mm.
just so that you can properly ignore them.
That's good.
And
That's
and
good.
the reason I like that is because I always I can use this as a personal positive information is I grew up in a very toxic culture of my own, and became and still became a positive person at the end of the day, I believe.
Mm.
And I was always told what I can't do.
Ah,
Can't do this and I can't do that, and I'm not ever going to be capable of this. But almost always I've proved everyone wrong. So
mm.
everyone has set my limits for me, and I've always ignored them.
Nice. Nice.
So I feel like that's something to keep in mind. That just because someone tells you you can't do something, if it's within reason, I think you should try. If it's something you have a passion for,
Mm.
don't let anyone ever tell you what you can't do.
Mm. Beautiful. Yeah, well said, Wayne. Gosh, that was good. You left me with a big impression, something that's going to resonate with me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wayne, I can't thank you enough for attending, for coming on, and thank you for the community that you've inspired
Sure.
and continue, and that they're also inspiring others too. I'm sure they're out
I feel
there
like they
helping
are.
others. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. There's no doubt. And I know I mean, we get a chance to talk and dialogue like this, and then yet we still get to go after it and compete against one another. So I think that's really neat too. And we get to do this with a lot of fun as we compete in this competitive space. But
Mm.
I just want to thank all of our viewers, all of the people that tuned in. Thank you so much. If you guys and gals can just please just chat and thank Wayne for coming on. Thank you. I can't thank you guys enough. And then Yusuf Andrews, who brought this production. Honestly, I can't thank him enough. He's part of the team and he does it in a big way.
Thank you, Yusuf.
So thank you, honestly. All right, thank you. You guys have a great one.
You everybody have a great night, and I'll see you on the field later.
See you
CSU.
on. I know. Thank you.
Take care, guys.
Bye bye.